Let's start with part 6. We were discussing what the play was going to look like, and first two acts were over. The tower had tumbled, and now we're going to move on to Act 3. Alright, let's commence. Act 3 was the castle hall, and here Hagar appeared, having come to free the lovers and finish Hugo. She heard him coming in and hides, sees him, but put the potions into 2 cups of wine, and bid the timid little servant bear them to the captives in their cells, and tell them I should come anon. The servant takes Hugo aside to tell him something, and Hagar changes the 2 cups for 2 others, which are harmless. Ferdinando, the minion, carries them away, and Hagar puts back the cup which holds the poison meant for Rodrigo. Hugo, getting thirsty after a long warble, drinks it, loses his wits, and after a good deal of clutching and stamping, falls flat and dies, while Hagar informs him that she had done in a song of exquisite power and melody. This was a truly thrilling scene, though some persons might have thought that the sudden tumbling down of a quantity of long red hair rather marred the effect of the villain's death. He was called before the curtain, and with a great propriety appeared, leading Hagar, whose singing was considered more powerful and wonderful than all the rest of the performance put together. Act 4 displayed the despairing Rodrigo to the point of stabbing himself because he has been told that Zara has deserted him. Now, just as the dagger is at his heart, a lovely song is sung under the window, informing him that Zara is true but in danger, and he can save her if he will. A key is thrown in, which unlocks the door, and in the spasm of rapture, he tears off his chains and rushes to find and rescue his lady love. Act 5th opens with a stormy scene between Zara and Don Pedro. He wishes her to go into a convent, but she won't hear of it, and after a touching appeal, is about to faint when Rodrigo dashes in and demands her hand. Don Pedro refuses because he is not rich. They shout and gesticulate tremendously, but cannot agree, and Rodrigo is about to bear away the exhausted Zara when the timid servant enters with a letter and a bag from Hagar, who has mysteriously disappeared. The latter informs the party that she bequeaths untold wealth to the young pair and an awful doom to Don Pedro if he doesn't make them happy. The bag is opened, and several quarts of tin money shower down upon the stage till it's quite glorified with the glitter. This entirely softens the stage till a stern sigh. It softens him, he consents without a murmur. All join in a joyful chorus, and the curtain falls upon the lovers kneeling to receive Don Pedro's blessing in attitudes of the most romantic grace. Tumultuous applaud followed, but received an unexpected check, for the cot bed on which the dress circus was built suddenly shut up and extinguished the enthusiastic audience. Rodrigo and Don Pedro flew to the rescue, and all were taken out unhurt, though many were speechless with laughter. The excitement had hardly subsided when Hannah appeared with Mrs. March's compliments, and would the ladies walk down to supper? This was a surprise even to the actors, and when they saw the table, they looked at one another in rapturous amazement. It was like Mommy to get up a little treat up for them, but anything so fine as this was unheard of since the departed days of plenty. There was ice cream, actually, 2 dishes of it, pink and white, and cake and fruit and distracting French bonbons, and in the middle of the table, 4 great bouquets of hot house flowers. It quite took their breath away, and they stared first at the table, then at their mother, who looked as if she enjoyed it immensely. Is it fairies? Asked Amy. Santa Claus, said Beth. Mother did it, and Meg smiled her sweetest in spite of her grey beard and white eyebrows. Aunt March had a good fit and sent the supper, cried Jo, with sudden inspiration. All wrong. Old Mr. Lawrence sent it, replied Mrs. March. The Lawrence boy's grandfather? What in the world would put such a thing into his head? We don't know him, exclaimed Meg. Hannah told one of his servants about your breakfast party. He is an odd old man, but that pleased him. He knew my father years ago, and he sent me a polite note this afternoon saying he hoped I would allow him to express his friendly feeling towards my children by sending them a few trifles in honor of the day. I could not refuse, and so you have a little feast at night to make up for the bread and milk at the breakfast. That boy put it into his head. I know he did. He's a capital fellow, and I wish we could get acquainted. He looks as if he'd know us, but he's bashful, and Meg is so prim. She won't let me speak to him when we pass, said Joe, as the plates went round and ice cream began to melt out of sight, with ohs and ahs of satisfaction. You mean the people who live in the big house next door, don't you? Asked one of the girls. My mother knows Mr. Lawrence, but says he's quite proud and doesn't like to mix with his neighbors. He keeps his grandson shut up when he isn't riding or walking with his tutor and makes him study very hard. We invited him to our party, but he didn't come. Mother says he's very nice, though. He never speaks to us girls. Our cat ran away once, and he brought her back, and we talked over the fence. And we're getting on capitally, all about cricket and so on, when we saw Meg coming in and walked off. He did, I mean. To know him someday, for he needs fun. I'm sure he does, Joe said decidedly. I like his manners, and he looks like a little gentleman, so I've no objection to you knowing him. If a proper opportunity comes, he brought the flowers himself, and I should have asked him in if I had been sure what was going on upstairs. He looked so wistful as he went away, hearing the frolic and evidently having none of it on his own. It's a mercy you didn't, Ma, laughed Joe, looking at her boots. But we'll have another play sometime that he can see. Perhaps he'll help act. Wouldn't that be jolly? I've never had such a fine bouquet before. How pretty it is. And Meg examined her flowers with great interest. They are lovely, but Beth's roses are sweeter to me, said Mrs. March, smelling the half-dead posy in her belt. Beth nestled up to her and whispered softly, I wish I could send my bunch to father. I'm afraid he isn't having such a Merry Christmas as we are. Moving on to chapter 3. Joe! Joe! Where are you? Cried Meg at the front of the garret stairs. Here! Answered a husky voice from above. And running up, Meg found her sister eating apples and crying over the heir of Redcliffe. Found her sister wrapped up in a comforter on the old three-legged sofa by the sunny window. This was Joe's favourite refuge, and here she loved to retire with half a dozen of russets and a nice book, to enjoy the quiet and the society of a pet rat who lived nearby and didn't mind her a particle. As Meg appeared, Scrabble whisked into his hole. Joe shook her tears off her cheek and waited to hear the news. Such fun! Only see! A regular note of invitation from Mr. Gardiner for tomorrow night, cried Meg, waving the precious paper and then proceeding to read it with girlish delight. Mrs. Gardiner would be happy to see Miss March and Miss Josephine at a dance on New Year's Eve. Mommy is willing we should go. Now, what shall we wear? What's the use of asking that, when you know we shall wear our poplins? Because we haven't got anything else, answered Joe with her mouth full. If I only had a silk, sighed Meg. Mother says I may when I'm 18, perhaps, but 2 years is an everlasting time to wait. I'm sure our pops look like silk. They're nice enough for us. Yours is good as new, but I forgot the burn and the tear in mine. Whatever shall I do? The burn shows badly, and I can't take any out. You must sit still all you can and keep your back out of sight. The front is all right. I shall have a new ribbon for my hair, and Mommy will lend me her little pearl pin. And my new slippers are lovely, and my gloves will do, though. They aren't as nice as I'd like. Mine are spoilt with lemonade, and I can't get new ones, so I shall go without them, said Jo, who never troubled herself much about the dress. You must have gloves, or I won't go, Meg cried decidedly. Gloves are more important than anything else. You can't dance without them, and if you don't, I should be so mortified. Then I'll stay still. And I don't care much for company dancing. It's no fun to go sailing around. I like to fly about and cut capers. You can't ask mother for new ones? They're so expensive. And you are so careless. She said when you spoiled the others that she shouldn't get you any more this winter. Can't you make them do? I can hold them crumpled up in my hand, so no one will know how stained they are. That's all I can do. No, I'll tell you how we manage. We each wear one good one and carry a bad one. Don't you see? Your hands are bigger than mine, and you will stretch my gloves dreadfully, began Meg, whose gloves were a tender point with her. Then I'll go without. I don't care what people say, cried Jo, taking up her book. You may have it, you may. Only don't stain it, and do behave nicely. Don't put on your hands behind you, or stare, or say Christopher Columbus, will you? Don't worry about me. I'll be as prim as I can, and not get into any scrapes if I can help it. Now go and answer your note, and let me finish this splendid story. So Meg went away to accept with thanks, looked over her dress, and sang blithely as she did up one real lace frill while Jo finished the story, her 4 apples, and had a game of romps with Scrabble. We're going to stop now, and we shall continue in the next one. Like and subscribe if you like what I do. Thank you so much.